Everybody, welcome to Evolving with Corey Castle, episode 208. And welcome to the end of 2020. Welcome to the beginning of 2021. And welcome very much goes out to my new friend, Just Incredible.
What's going on?
Hey, dude.
How are you?
How's life treating you, man?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. With this pandemic, it's been like nothing else. I've been in the business 28 years, man. And this is the first time I've been off from wrestling. Not off. I had a match a couple of months ago, but realistically not working semi-full-time schedule. So it's been hard financially, but it's also been hard just from a creative being out there and, just being around the boys, the fans, and actually getting in the ring,
It's a total adjustment period. The way I started putting it from the beginning, it's like, you remember when they started banning chair shots to the head? And you go back and you like watch that old stuff and you're like, oh yeah, dude, we used to take tons of chair shots to the head and it wasn't a big deal. But you watch it now, you're like, now you know that it's so banned.
Yeah.
I feel that same cringe when I watch something and guys are like hugging each other or shaking hands or something. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I hear you.
Same sort of that same feel hits you.
Yeah.
But I have to make sure that I tell you. So of course, everybody who gets into the business got into the business because there are huge marks.
Sure.
And everybody who's in the business are the marks. Like the marks got into the business. It's a matter of crossing that barricade.
Right.
So for me, I have to say, since I'm a Philly kid and a mark, I grew up on ECW, like going to shows. I didn't really get to go to the arena because I was like kind of too young and my mom didn't trust South Philly very much. So I didn't really get to go to the arena, but I saw some of I went to like the Woodhaven Sports Center show.
Yep.
And I went to the Southampton Armory shows.
Okay. Yep.
So all as a child. So having you hang with me and like us just hanging out, doing a chill combo here is pretty neat. So
yeah, right on.
Part of me starting this podcast, and the reason it's called Evolving with Corey Castle, and the part that my name is in it is less about like really putting me over and more going like, listen to me as I evolve. So I want to have conversations on the record with people who had some sort of meaning in my life.
Oh, really?
So I want to go on the record with saying, like, you being a part of that and me being such a big fan of yours is pretty significant in the growth of who I've become, and I will continue to evolve due to that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, shit. No doubt.
Your piece of work in that.
That's really cool. And like that's you hear that a lot now, and I hear it more as the older I've gotten. Kids that were maybe 10, 15 years my junior, I should say. Saying how much ECW meant to them growing up and how much, it was part of their high school years or stuff like that. And it's mind blowing, because for me, it was just a moment in time, something that I did for work, but something that I didn't feel it was like I didn't feel that it had such an impact on the fans. So it's really cool. And I take that very seriously, and I'm humbled really, because there's not one time I was at a convention this weekend in Albany, New York. One of the first time I saw fans and some of the guys and gals in the business. And somebody said that to me. He's like, man, when I was 15, everything was about Just Incredible. Sammy Callahan, who I was with recently doing Talking Shopomania 2. Callahan said the same thing. He goes, man, I got into the business because of ECW, and Just Incredible was one of my main influences. And to hear top guys in the business say that is pretty mind blowing. It's really cool.
I'm pretty much a bottom guy in the business, but I'm a power bottom guy. I'm kidding. But like I don't have a name that means as much as Sammy, but I have the history there. So when you and I met you when you were in CZW, and I was in CZW.
Okay.
I was only 19 or something like that at the time. And I'm about to be 37. So it's a long, long ass time that I've also been around the indies, and I haven't really made a huge name for myself. So I don't really advertise that I've been doing it for as long as I have, because you'd think I'd be way better and more over.
Well,
But
it's, that's not the case, man. A lot of times it's just right place at the right
yeah,
time.
exactly. That's the way. That's the way I go. Like, not taking it too personally at all, because that's why I start. That's why I start the episodes beating the drum, because as long as you stay consistent, in my drum, someone will eventually be like, "You hear that drum playing?" And that drum playing is, signifies my effort.
Sure. Yeah.
And so when I met you back in the day, so I also have been doing this for, a good chunk of time. So
Okay.
I recently had someone say something like that to me, and they were like, "Oh yeah, dude." He was like, "Oh, it's such an honor to get to work you, dude. I watched all your stuff on the internet,
Yeah.
like back in like 2003." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. I work exactly the same way."
Right.
And they were like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "No, I've grown. I hope I've grown. I hope I've grown a lot since then."
Yeah.
But like, it's neat, and it's weird because when I was the younger guy, I used to say to the older guys, like, "Oh, I looked up to you," and some of the older guys would be like, "Come on, don't do that. You make me feel old." But when I hear it, I go like, "I hope I'm an inspiration to you continuously."
Sure. Yeah.
I hope that carries on past what you watched and what you'll continue to consume.
Yeah. That's a good point. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. And that's one thing that a lot of these guys and gals sometimes don't realize is, this is their opportunity. This is their time to step up and take control of the business. And one thing that drives me nuts about them sometimes is I don't think they fully understand that instead of going out there and trying to mimic what they watch on TV, let's say the Young Bucks or Kenny Omega or whoever else they watch, they go out there. I watch a lot of indie stuff, and they try to be a carbon copy of a lot of these guys that they see on AEW or on NXT, on Raw, whatever it may be.
Right.
And instead of just carving out something for themselves that nobody else is doing, I'm surprised there's not more guys and gals doing it, because that's what it's really that's what it's going to really take for people to move to that next level. Because we already got a Kenny Omega. You're not going to do it better. He's him. So be the best you could be.
Yeah.
And that's what I always say to people that ask.
As a heel, I've been doing these promos where I say, you can be a better version of yourself. Just be more like me.
That's actually really cool. That's a pretty cool gig.
But really, like, in anything, it applies to everything. It's like no one else has got your voice. No one else has got your perspective. No one else has lived your life. The movie that you see through the lens of your eyes, you're the only one seeing it. You're the only one who understands the reasons why you made your decisions.
Yep.
So the same in comedy, like in doing stand-up comedy, they say like find your voice. That's kind of like what in pro wrestling is find your style.
Yeah.
Like you can be trained by a person and try to be just like that person, or like you get your own shit.
Yeah, get your own shit. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was trained by the Harts, and that's Brett and Owen's family. That's the world famous Hart family, and I got the basics from them, sure, and I'm that's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career. But then, of course, you can't go out there and be a carbon copy of Bret Hart or Owen Hart. Lance Storm was actually Lance Storm and Chris Jericho graduated the Harts in 1990. I came through in 92. So, Lance Storm ended up training a lot of our guys because the Harts were getting older. So Jericho and Lance, mostly Lance, were inside the ring teaching us spots and stuff like that, where the Harts would only come by once or twice a week. So, you end up just learning from so many other people up there. But I didn't go out there trying to be a technical wrestler like those guys or even like Lance.
Right.
I just ended up trying to be the best version of me I could be.
You learn what you learn when it's time to learn it, but then you develop as you get out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I've learned more outside of the wrestling school, which
Sure.
for me took a long time because I didn't take to it naturally. I
Yeah.
stunk, and I stunk for a good portion. But
Yeah.
I by the time I was like, all right, I kind of think I get this.
Yeah.
I was already, I was probably already 7 years in, and then I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna start trying to do stand up comedy because
Okay.
it's not like you decide what you want to do and that's the only thing you've got to do. Because I thought
Sure.
for the longest time I'd focus on like, well, that's the thing I want to do, so it's the only thing I want to do. Instead, I started like going and making my own voice because now I can go, ain't another person doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Ain't another person doing what I'm doing who's got the voice that I've got. And that's why I say, like, when somebody else comes to me and they talk to me about starting a podcast or doing something else, I'll absolutely give them any advice or any help or any resource because they're absolutely not a threat to me. It's like,
Right.
okay, if you're doing it too, you've got a different perspective than I
Sure.
do.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, um, it's going to take it's going to take everybody to be different and to kind of mold their own way. And again, it's like what works 6 months from now may not work, you know, down the line, or what I mean. Sometimes the past doesn't repeat itself. I think we're at a point in wrestling right now where we've, especially with AEW, it's like so much stuff looks alike to me. It's like if you watched one AEW Dynamite, you've watched them all. And the reason I talk so much AEW is that's really one of the only shows I watch religiously because I do a podcast with Vince Russo where we review the show every week. So I take notes on it and stuff. So,
Right.
and I don't watch a lot of WWE because I'm wrestled out of there, of that company. But with AEW, it's like you almost have every match is you do a dive to the outside, somebody does a kick or two, or those running knees, those Kenny Omega running knees, everybody's slapping their thigh 50 times,
Can I ask you a
apron
question?
bumps. Go ahead.
How many Instigiris is too many Instigiris?
Anything more than one.
There's a
Seriously.
ton of them in
Yeah.
wrestling. There's a
Yeah.
ton of them, and I hate them. There's dives, too many dives,
Yeah. Well,
too much
that's
dives, too many Instigiris.
yeah. It's like, but it becomes so exposed to me because all you see, and there's been many other people joke about it online where you could count how many times in a match somebody's slapping their leg. You know what I mean? Or, doing a dive, or the new thing now, I don't even know if it's new anymore. I think it's old, where people are taking big bumps on the apron. And, that almost seems like every match you're seeing these things. So it really, it devalues it. It devalues a move that's really impressive, and it makes it look just like anything else. So when you keep putting the bar up so high, it's like, well, what's the next thing going to be? And then when you find that next thing, which is probably really dangerous, or it hurts to do, then after that gets old, what is the bar is moving too high, too fast.
Yeah.
Where I didn't get it either when I was younger. I just wanted to go, go, go. But when I finally got to a place where I realized, man, I got to do this thing every night. Like that's why I always, any advice I give to guys and gals is when you pick your finish, make sure you could do it to everyone, because if you're a smaller guy and your finish is something where you got to pick them up and hold them, you're probably not going to want to do that if you're 150 pounds, because if you wrestle someone that's 250, 260, it's not going to work.
Right.
So you want to move that you could hit anybody with, and two, you're going to want to move that you can execute every night to some degree of safety. You don't want to, like, if somebody's finishes a 450 splash, you got to do a 450 every night, and after a while I'm sure that takes its toll on your
You,
body, on your
you will
knees.
soon be the man that gravity remembered.
Right. And but if you do a super kick like Shawn Michaels did for
Right.
his finishing move, not too bad. If you hit a stone cold stunner, not too bad. RKO, one of the most over moves in the business, not too bad.
Right.
So you want to keep it to stuff like that. And, a lot of people always think, the younger generations, a lot of them are like, oh, yeah, but, that's just the way it's going. And the business is, and I say that's bullshit, because the minute, you get to a pinnacle in the business where you feel like you have to keep moving that needle up and up and up, something happens. Like if you would have told me that in the 90s, the biggest finish and one of the biggest finishes in the history of the business was a Stone Cold Stunner, and it wasn't even called a Stone Cold Stunner, it was just a cutter of some
right.
kind.
Yeah, right.
You would have called bullshit. If you're
Right.
over like the people's elbow,
Right. It was
it's an elbow.
He just kicked his foot up.
Exactly. So
Right.
that's the whole point, is if you're good enough and you know how to work it, you could get any move over. It's just how you want to present yourself and how you want to get it over with the people. And if you work your magic properly, should be able to do it. Some to more success than others, but you should be able to do it.
Just like you said earlier, it's just the right person, the right place, right time. It's just it's just a matter of luck sometimes. I know it's difficult to say that you've put your like the force of your effort on some other force that isn't you, but it's luck in this.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it's not, I always thought, and I was naive, but I did get very lucky. You think like it's not baseball or football or basketball where if you're the most talented guy on the court or on the field, that hard work and being the best is going to pay off. We've had some of the greatest wrestlers never main evented and never became, more than undercard. It has so much more to do than that. Like for me, a lot of my biggest opportunities happened just because I was in the right place at the right time. The WWF contract that I got as Aldo, I was doing jobs for them, TV jobs. And, I lived in Connecticut, which was I lived like 45 minutes from Stamford from their office. And they needed somebody to go down there and work with Undertaker and Brian Lee. And then after working with them too, because they were doing the fake Undertaker, Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson came down to watch the last dress rehearsal, because I was wrestling Brian Lee on Raw the following night.
Right.
And, Vince and Pat started asking me questions about where I was trained and what nationality I was, which I found kind of strange. So when I told Vince and Pat that I was Portuguese, and they popped, I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And they asked me, can you speak it? I said, yes, I can. Well, they were like, okay, cool. No sold it, kind of. But at the end of the day, come to find out that they were looking for a Portuguese guy all along to go to foreign countries that spoke Portuguese, because business was down in the States and they needed somebody that spoke the language to go over there. So again, I was in the right place at the right time, spoke the right language. I mean, it took a lot of variables for me to get my first break. And it just goes from there.
Factors.
Yeah, and it just kind of, and the story goes from there, where I was just, I happened to be in the right place. Of course, you have to have skill and you have to be good, but that's just a given, right? It's just you should know that going in. The rest is a little bit of luck and a little bit of determination, and again, the stars have to align.
Like am I wrong? I might have heard this wrong at some point. Did they want you to do some sort of soccer thing at some point?
They did, yeah. Yep,
Okay.
That was the first draft on what they wanted the Aldo character to be, because it was around the time of the World Cup.
Okay.
And they figured, that would be relatable, but somebody put the squash on that. Thank God.
Good.
Yeah.
It's like the dynamic dudes with skateboards that they can run.
Skateboard, yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah.
So it would be like, unless you're really good at soccer.
Yeah.
You're just sleeping on that.
Yeah.
But what I was going back to when you were talking about the apron bumps. The first time I ever saw it was Trent Acid and Ruckus.
Oh, okay.
So that was and it was meaningful because they did it like once and then didn't do it again.
Yeah.
I think they did it once in the States and they did it maybe once in Italy or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But for the most part, you never saw it because they were like, well, that's probably dangerous. And that's like, it's an overstated fact that's the hardest part of the ring. Like, for sure it is. But the thing is, look at that in relation to the fact that most of the people watching it have never touched a ring, never been punched in the face, never touched ropes, don't know what it's like to fall down in there, don't know what it's like to bump, don't know what it's like to go through any of those motions. So why even bother? Like, why even?
Well, yeah. But that's the thing, and this is where they go wrong with it. If you express through commentating, and Jim Ross does a great job, and many others on the WWE side do a great job, but you put over that the apron means a lot, that bump means a lot, then it's up to you, the person that's taking it, to sell it properly, because you're the only one that can convey that danger and that message. So instead, what I see these guys and gals doing is, instead of really selling it, like, like you took a bump on the floor, or whatever. If you don't sell that properly, then it's just going to become another bump, which it has. And they don't do it justice for themselves, because they're just taking more and more crazy bumps, and it's going to catch up to them. But B, to the business, they're not doing themselves any credit, because it's just going to kind of water down everything else to where fans expect that stuff. And like, it's up to us how we sell it and how we react to it. Like, we're the actors in this play. We're the ones that dictate to the fans, not the fans dictate to us. And I think a lot of the newer generation, they get dictated to by the fans, because they want those 5-star matches in the sheets or the internet. And to them, that's. I mean, look, it's great for wrestling journalists, like legitimate wrestling journalists, and people's opinion to be high of you. Everybody wants that. When I was in ECW, having the best matches of my career, I listened to what Dave Meltzer said. If I had 4 stars, 4.5 stars,
Well, we as wrestlers, we not as performers in general, as people, this is probably a very core, like, in your bone marrow, seek validation.
Sure.
And any of those positive reviews are a validation, and even the negative reviews are attention. And we all want to be heard and seen and loved unconditionally. And like, that's, being relevant matters.
Yeah.
So if somebody who's relevant is speaking your name, you by proxy are pretty relevant.
Sure. But it just, like, it comes a time where, even as any artist, as any musician, or as any actor, actress, you take what any critic or the fans have to say, and you process it, you digest it, and then you kind of look at it objectively and say, okay, what could I do to improve? What could be better? But you can't live and die by that. And some people, unfortunately, will, and they throw all their confidence out the window, because fans may not necessarily dig a particular match that they had because they didn't do enough flips or whatever. I just think that, at the end of the day, everybody needs to find what it is, when they go out to the ring, that makes a good match. For me, it was knowing every night, whether I call it in the ring or call it in the back, I knew I could go out there and produce a solid match, no matter what, with whom, or whatever. And I think that's what a lot of people these days, unfortunately, don't do. They're more into just, how many stars am I going to get? And instead of saying, where am I on the show? How am I going to add to this card?
It should be less pandery and more.
Well, I mean, everybody should know. Yeah, everybody should kind of know that they're expected to go out and put on a great match, but not necessarily do 50 moonsaults to the floor if you're the opening match. And that's a systematic. It doesn't happen so much in WWE, I know, because they are very stringent on those. I remember when Shawn Michaels was using the super kick as his finish, nobody else in the company could use it, period, no matter where on the card. I mean, you could be at a house show and Shawn not on the house show, you still couldn't use the super kick.
Right.
Because again, it just devalues it. Yeah, and so when you see a super kick, it means something.
Right. There's a level of kayfabe that no longer exists, and it's something on the podcast Wrestle Rock where I call it it's like such a gray zone. Like
Mhm.
it's like what's in character, what's not in character, and I've been calling it gray fabe because we don't really understand
Yeah.
what's kayfabe and what's work, what's shoot.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, I don't know, man. I just unfortunately, I think that for my generation, I can only speak. We really cared about what the generation before us did and thought. There was a certain respect, and I feel like today, where when we finally got into our late 40s, which I'm 47, the boys would in some way, I don't know, man, kind of respect us in certain ways, and
mm,
I just think that they've taken the ball and run with it in ways that they don't protect the business for anyone but themselves. I feel like wrestling has become very much a selfish thing where they're not worried about anybody else. They're not worried about the company. They're not worried about whoever's on the card. They're just worried about, I'm going to go out there and do whatever it takes to have the best match,
it might
which
be
is
about
which is okay.
the gifts.
Right. It's
It
like,
might be
look,
about the gifts.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Right.
just catching that high spot so you could post it online. And
Mhm.
I don't know, man. It's just a wacky kind of thing. And I'm kind of rambling because I'm not making the exact point I want to make.
I think let
I'm
me see if I
grasping at
can
the words, you know.
let me try to articulate it some way. And tell me if this makes any sense. And I'm just going to relate it to mine because I for sure you're the generation before me for sure. So I cared about that. My generation cared about that,
Right.
and my generation cared a lot about. So in kayfabe, as we become part of the business, we are no longer considered marks for the business, and that was
Right.
part of it. The programming inside of it was a big thing that existed as part of protecting the work of your character and
Yeah.
part of protecting the work of the business. So I used to always say, just around the locker room, I'd be like, it's weird that like I can't wear like a Triple H shirt here without being called a mark and it being a bad thing.
Right.
Back then, I'm going to say like the early 2000s. The early 2000s, you couldn't be a mark,
Yeah.
and they would push humility really hard about being
Yeah.
humble,
Yeah.
and that part of it kind of got sucked away.
Sure.
That part of it kind of got sucked away in the selfishness of I'm going to wear what shirts I want to do. I'm going to do what moves I want to do, and it's not as much about the old saying, and I'm sure you're well aware of it. Like we shake everybody's hand in the locker room because we
Absolutely.
know everybody in the locker room needs us just as much as we need them. So the
Absolutely.
people in the beginning of the card mean as much as the people at the end of the card because the people at the end of the card, they've got a spot to fill just like you do.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you go around and you shake everybody's hand as a part of respect, and it's made fun of and it's kind of passe now. How the little worker handshake with the fingers,
Right. Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah. Yeah.
supposed to mean like if I work light on that handshake, then I'm taking care of you in the ring
Right. Right.
because we
Yeah.
need each other because
Yeah.
we're all gonna try to make money together.
Right.
We're gonna
Right.
try to draw houses together. Now,
Yeah.
I think when this was like, oh, that's old guy stuff. Okay, boomer. I think like the generation is like, oh, we're redoing it. We're making it better. But like it's not necessarily better.
No, no,
The-
it's not. It's not. And
what-
well, let me say this. I mean, I think there's room for everything. There's just to me, respect is what this business was made from. It came from respect. The business, in some ways, and this is going to sound really weird, but wrestling taught me respect in life.
Mhm.
Because back in the old days, man, when I was in the WWF from '92 to '97, I left the ECW to go to ECW in '97. It was like if you didn't carry bags and if you didn't do the young boy stuff, you'd pay for it. Like
Right.
you just didn't fit in, man. Those guys would physically and literally like bully you, beat the shit out of you. You just weren't welcome. Look at what happened to the Miz. For a
Right.
long time, he wasn't even allowed to dress with the guys.
Mhm.
They didn't like him, and so but in a way that people are going to be like, man, that's so bad. That's so this. That's so that. We had to they would test you like that, like they do for frats and other things, to test you to see is he trusted, does he belong, can we go to war with this guy? Because when you're on a 30-day tour of Germany or Europe or all these other places, you're literally going to war. You're away from your family, you're in a different country. You've got to rely on your brothers and sisters,
Mhm.
inside the ring, outside the ring. God forbid something happens. I mean, I've been on tours where I've lost people. I've gone to their hotel room and found them dead from an OD. It's very real, and
Yeah.
something that a lot of indie guys and gals don't understand. But it goes much deeper than this old school ritual. It's really a way to prove yourself as a good, honest man and or woman, and really to respect the business. To this day, I still shake everyone's hand,
Yeah. I think
just to
there.
kind of break the ice too.
I
You
think
know,
there's a certain like when the era before mine and going into mine, like they would push you until you decided you weren't going to be
sure,
fit for this.
sure,
So they'd only make sure that people who really wanted it were able to participate.
right,
So uh, that was like beat into me for a while, because I
yeah,
think, like, honestly, like I told you, I was really bad for a really long time. So it
yeah,
was like the fact that I stuck around,
sure,
like that made people go, okay, he belongs here. But
yeah,
for a lot of people and a lot of generations, they were just like, oh, well, our school needs to make money, so we'll accept your money, and
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
don't really
Don't
need
go
to
anywhere.
be, you don't really need to be in shape. You don't really
Right,
need to look like you're an intimidating pro wrestler. We'll
right.
give you whatever character you want because you're giving us money. And I
Yeah, it
think
was.
that
Yeah,
the desperation for Mark's money, and the Marks being us,
yeah, right,
the desperation for the Marks giving the money. It's like you're this. It goes back to the same thing as like people who don't know what it's like to be us and do what we
right,
do, calling the shots because they paid the money.
right. It becomes pay to play, which
Yes,
I see more often than not.
I call this
Because
business pay to play like probably 7 times a week.
but it really is, and I would say a good portion of it, maybe 40% of the business, because there are so many outlaw, indie, whatever you want to call them, that I'll go into a place in New Jersey, for example, and I'll know nobody on the card. Everybody looks like they're 150 pounds or 450 pounds, don't belong in the ring, literally probably have no business being in the ring, probably only trained for a little while, and they'll never go anywhere. And those are the guys that pay money to come in and bump and play wrestler.
Yeah,
They don't want to go anywhere with it. It's pay to play. And unfortunately, look, everybody should have a chance to get into the business, but it's a crime to put those people in front of paying audiences and try to put that forth as professional wrestling,
it's
because that kills you and I in
Yeah,
what we
it's
try to do.
embarrassing.
It
It's
is.
embarrassing. And I say it on the podcast, Wrestle Rock. I say it all the time. It's like if somebody goes, hey, you're a wrestler. Oh, my friend's a wrestler, my friend Johnny. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let me see Johnny. He's wearing jeans and
Yeah.
Walmart kick pads. I'm like, I'm not Johnny Walmart kick pads. I
Right.
care about my gear. I
Yeah.
care about why I'm here. I mean,
Yeah.
no offense to you and the jeans, but I'm saying, I'm
Right.
saying
No,
like
no,
that,
none
that was
taken.
your stick. That was perfect
Yeah.
for that time.
Right. Right. Right.
I loved that look. That was perfect for you. But I'm saying, like, nowadays
No, I
it's
know what you're
like
saying.
I make sure my gear is my gear and no one else on the show has any gear that's like mine,
Yep.
because when it comes to the end of the show and the people are leaving the building, they go, my favorite part of the match was the guy who had his name on his butt.
Yeah,
So
they remember. You want to be remembered. You
hopefully,
want to look like a professional. You look
hopefully,
like a
yeah.
professional.
Having some
Absolutely,
pride in what you do is important, and
absolutely.
having pride in what you do when someone else has less pride in it because
Yeah.
they're just trying to mark out.
Yeah, they're weekend warriors having their WrestleMania moment with their buddies that they had the same match at the wrestling school 50 times that they're about to have in front of 25 people. You know,
Right.
yeah, it's what it is, man. It's what it is. But
In
what are you gonna do?
in the early 2000s, like I used to be brought in by places to just
Hmm.
put over ticket sellers.
Oh yeah. The
And like
infamous ticket sellers.
barely ever making more than $20. And
Ah,
and that $20 trend lasts until my 30s. It's
yeah,
like it's such
yeah,
a pay to play business. And it's like,
yeah,
oh, I've given it my heart and soul. I've given it most of my life.
yeah.
And what I can do is have what I've learned be something that means something to somebody else when it comes
Right.
time to teach, or when it comes
Yeah,
time to discuss, or when it comes
yeah,
time to compare our experiences.
yeah.
Like I wanted to bring up your like YouTube stuff that you were
Oh
doing.
yeah, the Pro Wrestling 101. Yeah.
Yeah, did you stop doing that? Are
No,
you
I
still
still
doing it?
do it now. I do it now, but I do it on Vince Russo's channel now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I still have it. And it's same kind of stuff. If you just go on the search engine and type in Pro Wrestling 101, it's still there. It's basically for that. Those of you who don't know, it's just 5 minutes of a small lesson on certain topics in pro wrestling. Stuff that was taught to me, and all I do is pass down the knowledge that I've received. From 27, 28 years now in pro wrestling, which is great because it took me a lot of years to acquire and accumulate all of that knowledge. So I feel like just, sharing that, because that's one thing I feel bad for is a lot of these guys and gals are looking for that information, or looking for certain lessons and certain ways to do things. I mean, I really got lucky working in the WWF so young because, I'm sitting here talking to Pat Patterson. I'm going up and down the road with Razor, Shawn Michaels, and, Undertaker. I'm having conversations in the locker room, Kurt Angle, you name
The
it.
car is the classroom. Is that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
old saying?
I got to work with Mr. Perfect and go down the road with him. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about guys like I learned so much, and it sucks because a lot of these guys and gals, these young guys and gals, don't get that kind of information anymore, and it's sad. So I felt, you know, I know some of this stuff is being passed down. A lot of it is being passed down in schools, but if I could just have a little thing once a week where I could just drop some knowledge that somebody dropped to me when I was coming up, maybe somebody could find it useful and check it out.
Yeah, you know what's really cool? The opportunity that we have. When I always say
Yeah,
how amazing it is, the world that we're living in. When people go,
sure.
2020 sucks, or people were like, this stinks. I'm like, you have a magic box in your pocket all the time. All
Right.
the world's information that you need to know.
Sure.
Back in the day, like
Yeah.
old people would pass away and their lessons would be gone.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the fact that this all can be on the record, all of
Yep.
these amazing lessons that you've
Yep.
learned that you can pass on, like all these people who passed on who can't pass these messages on, like a Kurt Hennig, like you can kind of wrap it all into a 5-minute
Sure.
bow
Yeah.
to just kind of go, well, it's on the record now. And
Yeah.
and I say this about my podcast all the time. I say I'm going to continue doing Evolving with Corey Castle until I no longer am evolving. And I plan on no longer evolving when I'm dead. So I
Yeah.
will continue to do it because I want to continue to learn life lessons. And if I
Sure.
can learn your life lessons, that's why I want to hear it. You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's,
Absolutely. And we live in a unique time of information. I mean, God, when I was coming up, man, literally the internet was not there yet. You wanted something, you'd have to order it on VHS. If you wanted some Japanese wrestling or something like that, everything was tape trading. You just didn't have the knowledge and information you have now. I mean, now everybody's got a phone in their pocket that could, you could watch any match you want. You could communicate with people you could never communicate with. I mean, I literally, the way I got a hold of, because back then, there weren't wrestling schools online everywhere. Now you want to go to a wrestling school, just dial, Google wrestling school, and there it is. There's many, many, many. Back then, the business was so closed off. I didn't know there were wrestling schools. I'm from Connecticut, like down the road in New York or in Massachusetts. I found out about the Hart brothers in Calgary. I just graduated high school. I was a grocer, or like working at a Stop and Shop grocery store, doing bagging groceries and picking up carriages from the parking lot. And during my break, I stopped by the magazine stand and I picked up a Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, which were great for us, because that's how you saw a lot of the wrestlers that weren't on your local television. And all the way in the back, there was an advertisement that said, "Dare to be great. Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp." And they showed a picture of Bruce, Keith, Owen, Brett, etc. And I was like, holy shit, this is what I want. I've wanted it. I just didn't know how to do it. So I had to call Bruce Hart, send all this stuff via snail mail back in the day in order just to get a shot at going to wrestling school, where today kids have so many opportunities to just get connected, and you could connect to people in the business that you admire. Drop someone a DM, you'd be amazed at how many guys will get back to you. So there's so many opportunities to really make something of your career that we didn't have. So I just wish that people would take more of that chance instead of just sitting back and waiting for it to happen. Because you hear people that are on the indies, a lot of bitter people that are like, oh, I've been wrestling for 5 years and, I'm not going anywhere and I'm not making any money, or this and that. There's so many complaints where it's like, dude, you're just not, I'm sure a lot of the stuff, could be better for you, but are you really trying? Are you really doing everything you could? I mean, shit, I used to go on the road, sometimes 7-10 days on the indies and make like $40 a night. But happy to be on the road making those $40 a night and wrestling every night and being out there where, a lot of times people will, shit on it now. So, it's just putting everything into perspective and realizing how much of an advantage people have today that are coming up as they did maybe 27, 28 years ago.
I have to mention that I was just like, before we were talking, I was on somebody else's podcast, somebody else's wrestling podcast, and they were like talking to me about something, and I said, just for relativity, that my first time I ever used theme music in wrestling, it was on cassette tape.
Yes.
So it's amazing what the world is doing and how it's all changing. So it's part of going back and respecting, like, well, that was my first taste of stuff. And that was like, I was 15 or something. I was, but that's, it's funny to think about, like, what was right before that. Like, was the generation before yours using like a record player?
No, it was always tapes, man. Even when I came up, it was like literally you'd have to rewind and have it right at the moment you wanted to play it. But even in WWF, when I was there as Aldo and PJ Walker doing like B-Towns, literally the ring announcer, there would be a boom box at ringside with all the tapes queued up, cassette tapes for this WWF now. And he would take the house mic, the ring announcing mic, put it on the speed. Yeah, because there was no sound system. It wasn't the major arenas. It was the auxiliary arenas, the small armories or high schools or whatever. So it was Bush League for all of us for a long time, man.
Right. So, well, like, that's the part of like really putting it in perspective and sort of zooming out from how great you've got it, and understand that it took a long time of struggle for it to become as comfortable and luxurious as it is.
Well, people always think too, especially in the 90s, because Vince wasn't doing the greatest business. This was around the time of the steroid trial. I thought, man, I'm in the WWF. This is huge. This is all limousines, and boy, it was not what you would think. Right. There were, I remember guys, like 3 or 4 of us splitting a rental car and, doubling up at the Super 8. And I'm like, I'm with Razor and those guys, and we're making like, people thought we were making thousands of dollars a night. We're making like 350 to 400 a night, and that's the big guys.
Right.
So it wasn't what they made their money on merchandise and pay-per-views, but the house shows, it wasn't what people might think. And boy, that was a harsh reality for me.
Yeah, because
You know?
the perception
Yeah.
is you're famous, you must also be rich.
Yeah.
So that's the perception right from there.
Yeah,
And
it
like,
is.
we as humble nobodies
Yeah.
have to say, perception is a bitch, because
Yeah.
I ain't ever been rich.
Yeah, I mean, I've done well, but not rich. That's for
Right.
sure. And that's the funny thing, though. That was the whole part of being on television for Vince. And what kind of he always used the word when he'd negotiate with me, and not just me, everybody. Opportunity.
Mhm.
Opportunity. And what he did was, being on his television program, he made us stars. And with that stardom, then we could, once we left or whatever, we would be worth much more money than we were before we came in, which was true. The thing is, you really don't, you don't want to leave Vince, where are you going to go? And that started to happen when ECW and WCW went out of business. I was lucky enough to get re-signed by WWE in 2001 after, around the time of the Invasion, because I was on the last ECW show, and then I went right over to Raw. But a lot of people, man, there was no place to work, except the indies, and that's not reliable, unfortunately. So it was a rough patch.
What was the X Factor days like?
Oh, those are fun, man. Those were a lot of fun. I loved working with Pac. I mean, he's a good friend, always was, still is, and we had a lot of fun. We really did.
That's really, the funniest part about it was, like, I was into, like, and this is kind of actually embarrassing now that I'm a grown adult. I was really into like that album that Uncle Kracker had.
Yeah.
And then when you guys used it, then I was like, hey, that's cool. I like that song.
There's a story behind that. I was me and a couple of the ECW guys from Michigan, Sabu and Van Dam. We were friends with Kid Rock, Joey C, and Kracker. Well, Uncle Kracker's brother, Mike, Uncle Kracker's name is Matt. Mike Schaefer was my agent. So I became really close with the guys from Kid Rock, and Mike being my agent. Kracker's album was just coming out. The lead single was called "Follow Me," and they were looking for another couple of singles. So Mike said, pitch this to Stephanie. Use one of Kracker's songs. So we did, just to be different and kind of to get a heel vibe, because it was such a weird kind of difference. Not different, but
nobody was using
for
auto-tune.
wrestling, they weren't using that stuff.
Right.
It was more like rock and roll and that kind of shit. So I just figured, man, we're heels. Let's just use something really outside the box. And to this day, man, people still remember the song, and that is attached with X Factor. It's kind of funny. Worked out,
Well, what's funny, man? Like, I felt like, I mean, when me and my friend Scott would go and see the ECW shows, like, we kind of knew, like, you were kind of like an ode to the whole click thing, because like you would come out and you do the the same sort of suck it thing.
Yep.
So we were fans of all those guys. So we were also fans of you, and I think not even knowing the heart connection at the time.
Okay. Yep.
But that adds, if my 13-year-old self could see my 36-year-old self,
right,
having a conversation with you about this, and then you telling me that, he'd probably be like, "Whoa, cool."
That's great.
I think
tons of stuff.
I think tons of the things I think about what my 13-year-old self would think about me now.
Yeah,
is really mind blowing, and
that's awesome,
I hope that a lot of people feel that way. I hope that a lot of people have that sort of perspective on things, to go like, wow, like this has been a journey. This has been a journey to be where I'm at. So that's what kind of made me want to get off of talking about wrestling with you, and just kind of jump a little bit into like the life stuff.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Connecticut?
Yep.
Yeah. Both parents, siblings?
Yeah, both parents still married to this day.
Oh,
One brother, and middle class family. Always born and raised here. Always been here. Still here. I live probably half a mile from where I went to high school, and half a mile the other way from where I grew up. Like my mom and dad's old house. They since have moved to Portugal, back to their home country after they retired from from working and stuff here. So yeah, pretty much all I've done my whole life is wrestle, and now I'm just at the point in my life where I'm kind of looking for something different to do. I don't know what that looks like. You know,
do you
which is odd.
well?
Scary.
Do you think about starting a podcast? Because I mean,
I have.
I look at it like this. For a while, I wanted to write a book.
Mhm.
And I wanted to write a book, but then I was like, you know what? If it gets published and then in 10 years, somebody goes, hey, you said this in your book and I don't agree with it, and you kind of hurt my feelings. I'm like, well, I probably don't agree with it either.
Right.
At least on this, I have the opportunity to say
correct.
the next
Yeah.
day, the
Right.
next episode, where like, oh, you know when I said that thing, like I don't know if I really feel that way, and
Right.
nothing's really on paper, but it's on the record, and it's
Right.
like this shit's outliving us, dude. Like
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
for sure feel like a lot of times when it comes to my podcast, I always
Mhm.
say, like, when I'm not here anymore, I hope everybody who loves me will go back and listen to the start to when I'm done, because
Yeah.
like I said, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
if I started when I was 33, and now I'll be, by the time this episode comes out, I'll be 37. So
Okay.
so it's like I'm gonna continue to grow as a broadcaster,
Sure.
and continue to grow as a comedian, and can grow as a wrestler if I'm still doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
all part of the soup.
Yeah.
Part part of the soup. So I feel like with the lessons you've got, you couldn't fit them all into 5-minute YouTube videos.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
If you were to like maybe have conversations with other wrestlers, and to me it's really not about like the monetization of it. Like I haven't made a dime off of this.
Sure.
But it's the currency of effort, the currency of attention. If I can grab your attention and make you like maybe look at things a little bit differently than you were looking at it before, or maybe learn something you didn't know before, or something like that, I'd rather have that. And that's why I think you'd benefit from having a situation like that, where you can kind of just shoot the shit about the business.
Yeah.
And have your own platform for it. So absolutely, if I can be any resource to you in that, like absolutely let me know. As of today, as we're recording this, we had a little snafu with the Skype, and I had to use the Wrestle Rock StreamYard. So
Yes.
if you see the Wrestle Rock logo in the background,
Yeah.
I have to say thanks, Rick. Thanks so much. And man, like let me really at any point, dude, if you have anything you want to talk to me about or ask me about, for sure, you got my number, dude. Hit me up anytime.
Oh,
And
thank you. I definitely appreciate that, dude.
and that also like goes back to us talking about the openness of the availability to talk to anybody.
Right.
Really, like that didn't exist when we were younger at all.
And it's really cool because not just me reaching out to people. I mean, I've had people reach out to me that's kind of blown my mind. I've had all kinds of comedians that are fans of me that kind of blew me away. All kinds of artists. I had Andrew Yang, the Democratic presidential candidate, reached out to me. And it was like mind blowing because I guess he was a wrestling fan from childhood, and he'd gotten into a little bit of a discussion publicly about Vince McMahon and
Unionization.
the unionization. So just talking to all kinds of people is really neat. So we'll see with the podcast stuff. I just feel right now I'm just looking for a career though. That's my biggest thing because financially things have been really hard, man. I ain't gonna lie. COVID has really kicked our asses. in entertainment, not just pro wrestling, and all of entertainment, live events, musicians, people that make their money touring, comedians. It's been a struggle. So, we'll see what happens. But, I'm looking for that next part of my career as far as, making a living. That's kind
dude.
of the most important thing right now.
I totally feel what you're saying. Like on like my day job, it's like I'm just like a helper at an HVAC. Like that's what I've been doing lately. And that's obviously not what I want to do with the rest of my life, but it's for sure what's helping me get by currently.
Exactly. And that's what
I think that when you talk to anybody, mostly people get like so caught up in I hate my job, and not looking at their job as just a means for income to get them
means to an end
to whatever the next journey, the next chapter might be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm still fortunate enough to make money on wrestling, and I go to LA this weekend to do a virtual meet and greet out there. But also, they have a comic book shop, so we'll be doing both virtual and physical, which is cool. I haven't been out on the West Coast in a while, but we'll see. I'm just trying to figure out what the next step for me is. We'll get there.
This is a funny thing, and this is kind of more personally you and I. In 2011, in the summer of 2011, I had a grand mal seizure that almost killed me.
Wow!
And I had to have brain surgery. Right. So, all that aside, whatever. I don't want to get into the whole story. I can talk that story a bazillion times. But right before I had the grand mal seizure, I was supposed to have a match with you.
Oh, wow.
And I was super psyched to have that match, and that never happened.
Oh, wow.
So
that sucks. Well, it sucks you had the seizure.
you could have saved me. You could have saved me. I could have been like, well, I could get out of the business. I had my final match with Just Incredible. I don't need to come back. But here I go, coming back for more.
I thought you were going to say something like, yeah, I was supposed to work with you and show. Thought you were going to go that way.
No, we were supposed to have a match, dude. And you showed up, but I think I died.
That's good.
I think I might have passed away.
Oh, that's no good. Well, we're definitely glad you're here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But thank you for not, dude. Maybe if we did have that match, maybe I would have not come back. You know what I mean?
You never know, man. Never know. And it's never too late to have that match, too.
Yeah, for sure. Never too late to have that match. But
absolutely.
For sure. Because it's like, it's part of like showing people that you can go with what works, probably. Yeah. If we were to have that match, it would be as over as any like slappy thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, guaranteed, dude. That's one thing. I've learned more about what gets me over and how to get over and how to get others over. I know more now than I ever have. It's funny. I was looking at a picture of Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk in 1997 or 98. We were doing something. I think me and Lance were doing something with Dreamer and Funk. And I'm looking at Funk standing next to Dreamer, and Funk looks great. And I'm like, wow, Terry's probably like 47, 48 here. And even, and then we looked at him as this old man who was on the brink of death. And I'm like, he's my age, dude. I mean, Terry always did that, though. Terry always played up his, a lot of that shit was a work with Terry. Even the stuff that behind the ring thing or whatever, beyond the mat. Yeah, a lot of that was a work because I know Terry really well now. But anyways, you always believed that Terry was this fossil, and I'm like, damn, he was 40. He's my age then, But
it lended a lot to the idea of anybody who decides to get into this business is sacrificing a ton.
Oh, so, I mean, yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's definitely in a lot of pain, but he wasn't as bad off, I don't think, as he portrayed. You know,
like that was what a scene! What a scene for him to go. Oh, I should be able to walk around comfortably, and he's like, walk at all. Like for sure, that's something. Like we've all had conversations like that with doctors about certain things, and it's like, I don't know if the fans or whatever ever really understand what we'll just kind of give up for that pop. Like the fact that missed lots of birthdays, weddings, funerals, parties, anything. Lots of sacrificed like time with loved ones that we won't get back. But we knew that when we decided to get into it. And I say a lot too is like headshots with the chairs.
Yeah.
Like I kind of still say like I wouldn't take those back. Like that even though that was I had maybe 20 some concussions and brain surgery. It's like nothing felt as good as that pop.
Yeah.
I took an unprotected chair shot to the head in a baseball field in South Jersey for 2 pizzas in front of like 15 people.
Yeah, I believe it. I've been there too, man.
Right.
Shit, we've all been there.
Like nothing matches that pop, and it's like the chair hurts, but everything hurts.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And to me, it wasn't even the pops were great, but then it after when you leave the big time, getting a pop in front of 50 people is not like getting a pop in front of Madison Square Garden. I always tried to get it, but I never got that feeling again. So for me, the fun and the good stuff I get out of it now is just putting on good matches and having fun with who I'm working with. It's the fun of being actually in there now that does it for me, is instead of getting the reaction. For me, it's like the actual good time of working and kind of playing in my little playground. That's what I really dig these days, because it's so much more relaxed and I can call my own shots. That's the pleasure. The real pleasure it is for me is just to have that kind of fun and know, I'm in control. I'm gonna have a good match. I'm gonna have a safe match, and we're gonna, and it's so much fun in there. I could be in there forever, just walking and talking and fucking around.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. Like you were talking about wrestling schools. Wrestling school, and I think I think about this all the time, and I say it as often as people care to listen to it. The difference between like football, baseball, soccer, any of that, everybody has a team in their school that does that.
Right.
Mixed martial arts, there's a strip mall everywhere that has that. Everybody can do that. Yeah. Anybody who's in this side of the barricade, it's like we had to seek it out. We had to.
Yes.
It's such a small amount of people who do it. That's why it's when I say the Johnny Walmart kick pads, it's like that's why that's embarrassing, because there's so few of us that somebody that represents what that idea of wrestling is in someone else's mind doesn't match what I am. That's sort of the weirdness. But when it came to like, honestly, and I used this word before AEW was a thing. It's such an elite brand of person. It's such an elite brand of person who will go, you know what? I'll sacrifice this much of my life. I'll give my life to this. Yeah. I'll give the rest of my life to this. Probably my entire life to this.
Sure. And it takes a unique individual, that's for sure.
Right. It's
what it is.
Yeah.
But listen, I got to get going because my wife is going to work, and I got to take instructions from her before she leaves.
Can I?
Of course.
Get 2 more things, and then
absolutely,
and we'll handshake and hot dog and send you home.
Let's go.
All right. So, time machine. Audio time machine is this is what I do. So, like I said, this shit's outlasting us. So, 10, 20 years, someone who really cares about you, your kids listen to this. They want to know what dad's really like. Your best friends will listen to this. They want to know what Justin Credible or PJ is really like. In this moment, you are traveling with your voice, an audio time travel to that moment where they want to hear the message for them in 10, 20 years. What is it?
I went on this journey in pro wrestling to entertain people, and out of pure love and passion for it, And I just want them to know that I gave everything I had to entertain the fans, and I just want to be, I want them to remember how much I truly enjoyed it as well. So I would say that.
Okay. So hypothetically, and this might be the case, hypothetically, I'm gifting you this podcast. So you might have your own podcast, but that's beside the point. Hypothetically, this podcast is now yours. It's now evolving with Just Incredible.
Okay.
As a very Jerry Springer's final thought type of way, how would you wrap this all up in a pretty bow to take the life lessons in order to try to evolve to a better version of yourself tomorrow?
Just always look for more, always explore, always try to be better than you were the day before. Always have that boyish or girlish quality in you that you're curious, that you want to kind of see what's behind that door. I think that always worked for me in life, and I think it'll work for others as well.
All right. Well, I want to say that I really, really appreciate your time and effort. It's very valuable, this currency, this conversation,
Absolutely.
the attention is very important. I like to say at the end of every episode, if, like I said it to you already, if I can be a resource for you in any way, and this doesn't just go for who I'm talking to, this goes for who's listening. If I can be a resource for you, and if you feel like you need some judgment-free conversation, if you need maybe some advice, if you need some help, talk to me. I'm here. I exist. Let me know you exist.
Absolutely, man.
Go ahead. If you can support somebody who's given you this, this message, somebody who's given you their love and their attention, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Maybe go back and listen to the other 206 episodes of 207 episodes of the podcast, and maybe follow on Instagram or Twitter at Corey Castle. At what's yours? PJ Palaco?
At PJ Palaco, yes, on both Instagram and Twitter.
All right. Well, Just Incredible, PJ, thanks so much for all your time. I love you, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, man. It's been an honor and a pleasure, dude. I had a great time.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is just the beginning, man.
Absolutely. You'll hear from me again.
All right. Take care, man.
Thank you so much, Corey. Have a great one.
You too, man. See ya.